Hi, welcome to the IvyLife Quad. I'm Chris Colvin. I'm the founder of IvyLife, and I'm delighted that we have a guest speaker today, Deborah Shames. Deborah is the CEO of Eloqui, which is a leading training and communications company for executives and professionals. And Deborah is going to share her tips today on media training for work from home. So Deborah, without further ado, why don't you take us through the tips and techniques that you have so that we can be more effective in this environment that we're all trying to adjust to.
Thank you. For the past 15 years, Eloqui has trained, coached, and delivered keynotes to attorneys across all practice areas. So we understand what it takes to generate new business, to expand your footprint in the community, and to stay in touch with existing clients. Now, we're all working remotely, and the interesting part is it takes different skills to communicate remotely than it does in person. Everything from the time that you have, to the camera being up close, to multitasking. Over the next 15 to 20 minutes, I will address what I have found makes a difference to not only master the technology, but to master communication skills. Now, this is your session. I really hope that during it, you chat, you hold down your space bar, you ask questions, because that's what will make this valuable to you. And that's what I want. So in terms of the tools, techniques, and safety nets, I'll focus on what to do before, during, and after a remote session.
Wonderful. Hey, Deborah, can I jump in real quick? I'm a lawyer, but this group is a broad group of Ivy League alumni. So just so you know, it's not all lawyers.
Good.
Okay.
Well, then I'll include some of our other examples, like we work for Northern Trust and Humana. They all are using remote. I'm not telling you anything new. So just yesterday, the head of an immigration law firm, David Herson, sent me his PowerPoint and said, look, business is slow. I'm presenting to the Orange County Bar Association. What do you think of my presentation? And I said, David, it's educational and informative, but it will not allow you to achieve your goal. His goal was for them to see him as the go-to person when an immigration issue came up. But by educating them, he was going in the wrong direction. In our book, Own the Room, we like to say, if you educate people, you get them to think. If you persuade them, you get them to act. Your job is always to be persuasive. And so what I discussed with David is what you have in your PowerPoint is the leave behind version, but it's awful in terms of the presenter deck, because by the time people finish reading even one slide, they're not listening to you, and they're not going to partner with you. So I encouraged him to make the PowerPoint lean, visual, and as a compliment to him rather than the whole presentation. Then I said, David, make it complicated and don't be afraid to go negative. Because if other attorneys take on, oh, I know, Karen, I have no problem being direct. If other attorneys take on immigration issues and they're not experienced in it, tell them what it will cause in terms of delays and money invested in this country. And then tell examples from Herson Immigration of how you served clients. We're going to do a final rehearsal tomorrow, but he already feels better about it, because when you tell stories, when you connect with an audience and you see them engaged, there's nothing better. So, first thing when you have a remote session is determine your intention. What do you want to achieve? Not to educate, not to inform, but how do you want to persuade them? Do you want to do business together? Do you want to get a second meeting? Do you want to be seen as the go-to person? Once you have an intention, you're ready to go. An intention is not to check in with a client to see how they're doing. That was okay maybe in the first week or two, 2 months ago. It's no longer appropriate. So whether you're an attorney, a financial advisor, a CPA, an intention can be, or when you send them an agenda, can be, I want to share with you the latest regulations that affect your business. Then, when your potential client or existing client writes back and says, yes, I'm interested in that, let them know what you will cover in the 20 to 30 minutes. In-person sessions are good for about an hour, not remote sessions. Only 20 to 30 minutes. If you have a PowerPoint or a lot of questions, yes, you can go longer, but keep it short. That's essential. And your PowerPoint, if you're going to use it, needs to be more visual. Next, people multitask. It's a fact of life, no matter how much you would like them not to. So at least for you as the presenter, before a meeting, turn off your email, web browser, cell phone. Well, cell phone is a different issue. I'll get to that in a second. And ask your client or potential client to do the same thing. They won't, but at least you've requested it. The other issue is that bandwidth is always an issue when you're in a rural or an area like I am in Santa Fe. The only way I can get through a session without my system crashing is to turn off everything else. And that's hard if you've got kids or a partner and they're on another computer or they're on their cell phones. The reason I say leave your cell phone on but muted is if everything goes south, and it's a one-on-one meeting, have the client's number on your cell phone and immediately call them, as opposed to trying to get the buffering to stop or the poor image to stop. Also on Zoom, uncheck the Enable HD box. If you uncheck that, it uses less bandwidth. Your image will still be fine, and the buffering or the crashing will be minimized. The other thing you can do, in addition to not enable HD and turning off everything else, is to let the client know that you will continue this no matter what, and you will call them. For example, Humana is a client of ours. They have hundreds of physicians who now have to work remotely, give diagnoses, talk to elderly patients who are scared to death to come into the hospital. So what we train them in is how to display empathy, as well as how to ask probing questions and how to get them into the hospital, into medical appointments when fear is a big factor. Now, many of them do not like or are familiar with technology. That's why that cell phone and the doctor saying, Mrs. Jones, if your system crashes, don't worry. I will call you up and we'll continue our session, is so important. Another thing you can do is don't schedule your Zoom sessions at the top of the hour, because guess what? Everybody else is too. It strains the bandwidth. Schedule them at 10 after, 20 after, and you'll be much less likely to crash. These are all the things you can do beforehand. In addition, set up your space. All of you are doing great. Chris has a number of backgrounds. If you're going to use a virtual background, you need a green screen. However, there are problems with the green screen too. If Chris raises his finger, show them, Chris. Yeah, do you see? They look bizarre. You have to be careful. The same is true with your head. If your head moves too far, it will bleed into the background. So test it out. And when in doubt, go simple. But the key is where to put your camera. My camera is a webcam. I can tell you where to buy it afterwards. It's right above the monitor. I will look straight into the monitor. The worst thing you can do, Susan, I'll get to that in a second. The worst thing you can do, if your camera is, if your camera is in the lower left portion of the screen, like it is on my Dell, If I don't raise my computer, if I don't have a webcam, the camera is looking up into my nose hairs. Bad idea. Same if it's up too high. See, I ruined you. You're going to watch TV now, and you're going to say, oh my God, didn't they know where to position their camera?
Mm-hmm.
Didn't they know to have a simple background? Or to turn off, oh, there's another tip. Turn off system sounds when you have a non-Mac. Leave your Zoom audio on, leave your headset and speaker on, but turn off system sounds. You don't want those annoying dings or when notifications come on. So, Chris, what was Susan's question? I can only see part of it.
Sure. So she says, Deborah, are you suggesting that only during launch the bandwidth is compromised, so 10 minutes after the hour makes a difference?
Yes, I am. Now, during it, if people start turning on their, for you, in your house, if they start turning on other videos, your iPad, your laptops, that will compromise your bandwidth.
Yeah, and I think I've read a little, there's actually a great book that I recommend called Tubes, which is a layperson's guide to the internet. And it's by a award-winning journalist. It's very good. And the other thing that he mentions in that book is if lots of people in your neighborhood are draining bandwidth, there's a collective drain. So I think the staggering the launch time to say, 15 or 30 rather than the top of the hour, I think then you're not competing with all the people in your house or in your neighborhood. So.
Right. And some of you are parents. You can't change your kid doing their homeschooling at a certain time. It's easier with a spouse, or a partner, but even they're going to use it when they have to. So these are all the things to test out. I highly recommend, if you have an important client meeting, to test out with a friend. Schedule a Zoom session where you see if there's any problem. Now, in the old days, we had to have very high production values in lighting. We don't anymore. But when I worked with a client and their cell phone was their camera, it really did not look good. It was terrible. And Andrea wants the name of the book, so Chris will make sure to get them.
Yep.
Get it for you. So these are the things you do beforehand, because the last thing you want is to focus on technology when you go into a session. So first you have an intention, and it's persuasive. Next, you take on a role. Now, I know your role is financial advisor, attorney, insurance professional, but when I say a role, it's something like a trusted advisor. And a role is both language and behavior. And trusted advisors are empathic. They're not rah-rah motivators. They ask good questions. They're good listeners, and they have the experience. There's nothing better than coming across as a trusted advisor to build your business. If we're ready to go into the actual presentation, I have a couple of other tips. First, I'm a communication specialist, so wear blue when in doubt. Blue shirt, solid blue for men or women, means you're approachable, and there's nothing better. Solid blue. Be careful of patterns. Chris is wearing a check shirt. I'm sorry, I'm throwing you under the bus now.
That's okay. That's what I'm here for.
Better is to wear a solid color, because to be approachable, to be trustworthy is what you want. It's all about, when I directed film and television, an actor is selfish, a performer is selfish. They always wanted all the attention to go up to their face. So don't have a distracting pattern in your tie or your clothing. No big jewelry for women. Keep it simple.
So I should wear my Hawaiian shirt next time, is that?
Please don't. Oh, speaking of Hawaiian shirts, some of you will change your background to like a Hawaiian landscape. Look for any landscapes that have movement, because if there's movement in the water or movement in the palm trees, your head will bleed into it. Not a good idea. So I heard that red or dark pink makes you look like an expert. No, it makes you look like a party goer. Trust me, having directed over 60 films and videos, I always had the actors, the performers, the CEOs bring their wardrobe to the set. There was one time a woman wore a nice olive green jacket. The problem was she was a teacher and the blackboard behind her was green. So she looked like a talking head floating. Wardrobe's important. Okay. Any other questions about what to do beforehand? Anybody? Hold down your space bar, do the, oh my God, there's 10 chats. How are we doing there, Chris? Anything?
We're doing good. I'm trying to, some of them fall into the same category. So I think we covered pretty much everything.
Okay. And don't be afraid really to butt in and hold down that space bar and ask me a question. Now, during the session, this is a fairly long one, so I'm sitting. If you've done a number of Zoom sessions, WebEx sessions a day, you may want to stand for it, because standing keeps your energy up, allows your lungs to breathe, and you really want to be in the moment so that people know this is important. So practice standing as opposed to sitting. Do what Chris is doing and have a cup of coffee or tea, or you can have water in it nearby. Room temperature water is the best thing to lubricate your voice. Don't eat during the session, but beforehand, have grapes and apples nearby. There's nothing like grapes to lubricate your vocal folds, especially when you do this all day long. And you don't have to push your voice, so you want to uncheck the audio button that keeps it at a certain level, because you want to put your audio at no more than 50%. That'll keep you from distortion, from popping, or from needing to yell. 50%, grapes and apples, room temperature water. Stay away from Elvis sandwiches. No peanut butter, banana, or marshmallows. Those will give your voice a sticky quality. For me, everything is important. It's called impression management. So for example, when we work with you, we'll not only go over these tips, we'll show you how to structure a presentation, how to tell a story, how to have the tenacity to get through your presentation and be successful. We want you to win. Listen, with Humana doctors, I feel helpless about what to do with our healthcare providers who are risking their lives every day and doing such great things. If I can teach these doctors to be more empathic, to ask good questions, to probe for specifics, to bring their patients into the hospitals, I know the hospitals won't go under, and I know I'm making a difference. So are all of you. You are making a difference. So I don't want technology to get in the way of you making a difference. Let's keep talking about what to do during the session. So you'll stand or sit. You'll have your water nearby. You'll eat your grapes beforehand. You'll wear your blue shirt or a solid color. And the day before, send the agenda as well as a gentle reminder to whoever you're meeting with. And there's nothing like knowing that you stay in touch. And then 5 to 10 minutes, I do 10 minutes as Chris knows. If you're the host, be there early. Don't ever have a client or potential client waiting for you. And when you're early, you can check to see if everything is working. Oh my gosh. Now, here's the thing about everything working. When I used to do Zoom sessions, I didn't realize that the invite comes from my time zone. So I was always early or late by an hour. So in the invite, what I do now is I'll say 11 o'clock Eastern, 9 o'clock Mountain, to just be sure. These are the kind of things that can hang you up. And when there's a problem, it takes away from you connecting with whoever is in the screen. And connection is paramount. Now, all of you have the right focus in terms of, it's what we call a medium close-up. It's from the chest up. For many of you and your clients, that's what causes Zoom fatigue. The camera is on you. It's up close. It reads signals. Now, at Humana with the doctors, elderly patients don't like that extreme close-up, or they're embarrassed about the setting where they have their camera. They're in their bedroom. They're in their kitchen. Oh, let me address Esther's comment about hands and gestures. I want you to gesture. However, know what your frame is. If your frame is tight and you're gesturing, it can look like grass growing in the bottom of the screen. So please gesture to get air into your lungs, but be sure that the person or people on the other side can see your hands. Otherwise, if you're standing, you're going to gesture at about waist level. The worst thing you can do is have your hands and arms clasped tightly to your side, because you'll run out of oxygen and you'll get a lot more tired during the session. Great question, Esther. Keep those cards and letters coming. I want to answer them.
Deborah, I had a question about dress, and this has come up in prior sessions with this group. How should you, if at all, vary your dress from what you'd wear in the same context? In other words, if I'm having a business meeting with a client, I dress a certain way. If they were visiting my office, should I dress that same way in this work from home environment? Should I be a little more casual? What thoughts do you have on that topic?
It's a personal choice, but I believe, look, I'm wearing a jacket over a blouse. But what I might do in the middle of it, if it's more informal, is take off the jacket and roll up my sleeves, which is much better for men to do. So in the beginning, people will get on Zoom sessions and they had bed hair. It looked like they literally just fell out of bed and their hair was everywhere and they had sweatshirts on. We expect professionalism. We generalize the way you show up for remote sessions is the way you do business. So it's very important that our generalization is what you want. Also, here's an interesting statistic. The way we show up for remote sessions, the way we deliver our content is worth 2 to 3 times the actual content. So delivery is essential. That means your confidence level, your caring, your empathy, the way you ask questions, all of that is how we make a decision that you're our trusted advisor, that we want to do business with you. If you come across as professorial or an expert, that's not good. We don't do business with experts. We do business with people who we believe care about us. So your job in remote sessions, communication-wise, is to ask good questions, be a good listener, use the chat function, do whatever you can to connect and engage with who's ever on the other side. Now, for many of us, I wrote the book called Out Front, How Women Can Become Engaging, Memorable, and Fearless Speakers. Women often don't speak up, except in a remote session, you have to. Women pay attention to the critic in their heads. The only way to shut that critic down is to put your full attention on whoever is on the other side of the camera. Make that camera your friend. When I used to direct actors, I used to say, look, it's not a camera. It's your cousin that you like. It's your best friend. Because that will show through in your eyes. That will show through in your expression. Chris, I only caught the beginning of 2 great questions. Would you direct them to me, please?
Yes. Advantages and disadvantages of wearing a headset as the host or speaker in a meeting.
Right now, we're used to headsets, and your audio will be so much clearer with a headset that I say go ahead and wear it. And a year ago, it would have seemed strange. No more. But make sure it's unmuted.
And
Okay,
can I make a related recommendation that I just adopted? I got tired of the headset, so I purchased something called a Jabra, which is it's a company that makes something that's like basically a speakerphone, and it doubles. You can plug it right into the USB port of your computer, and that's what I'm using now. It's much better than the internal mic in the computer, but you get your ears back, and it gets tiring. So that's a great alternative, and there are competitors, but that's Jabra, Jabra, and it also doubles as a Bluetooth speakerphone for your smartphone. So that's a nice device as well.
There was another question. Could you direct it towards me, please?
Yes. So another one is talking about admiring your voice. It sounds really great. Do you practice? How do you practice with your stage voice, if you will?
Great question. I will send you all your voice is your instrument. You can do whatever you want as long as you have a voice. And so my partner represented companies like Siemens and Cisco and Chevron. He had to do a show at the Trade Center every 15 to 20 minutes. His voice, if he wasn't a pro, would go. So these are warm-up exercises, how to keep your voice tuned. And when you practice, first of all, you have to warm up. Every good performer knows about warming up their voice, which is their instrument. Also, they're fun exercises. One of my favorite movies is, The King's Speech. Mm-hmm. And Lionel Loeb did not leave warm-up exercises for the voice, but Jeffrey Rush is a pro. And so all the warm-ups that he did with Colin First were real actor performer warm-up exercises. I will send those to you. They're silly, but they work. Wheat, 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 wheat. Who, you, buddy get it. They're like that. And your kids will enjoy them, and it'll strengthen their voices from the age of 2 or 3 on.
It's a great movie. I'll second that.
When I rehearse, I do the overview. I never give away the full delivery of a talk that I'm about to make, because like an athlete, if I give it away too soon, I have no energy left when the actual speech is coming up. But please rehearse. Know your outline. Know where you want to go. Have notes nearby if you need it, but this is about you connecting with me. We used to work at Johnson & Johnson, and the executive there hired a speechwriter, and she followed that speech perfectly. Well, the problem was people didn't trust her. So for all of you, that conversational tone, the not being perfect, that's what will engender trust. And so that's what I recommend. A new comment came in, Chris, what was it?
Yes. So someone is using 2 screens. Dale is using 2 screens, and the speaker is on the larger screen, but her camera is on her laptop. How does she manage to look focused and engaged while she's using this 2 screens?
You can do 2 screens, but I don't like to look at myself. I want to make sure that I'm connecting out with you. So whatever it takes, and there's in the upper right-hand corner, there's the speaker view, which now I'm the same size as all of you. If I click on it, Chris is the larger one, and I'm still in a small box. So practice, because you don't want to be looking at yourself. The thing is, you do want to ask permission for taking notes, and to say, if you see me looking down, I'm taking notes to be sure that I know the action items that I've promised to do, and for the follow-up. That way, they won't think you're checking email. Gary, I only caught the beginning of your question. Chris, could you read it to me, please?
Let's see, Gary. Oh, there was a Gary question really early on.
Ireland. No, it just came in.
Oh, came in.
No, I just noted that you were, you said you worked at Johnson & Johnson, and Jim Burke was a friend of ours.
Oh, good. So
I wasn't trying. I thought you'd get it after the program. I apologize.
Okay.
Oh, that was a private message just to you, I guess. That's why I didn't see it. Okay.
I apologize.
Another client, another division at Johnson & Johnson, another time. Let's look at what's important in terms of impression management. It's staying on time. If you've asked a potential client or an existing client for a 30-minute or a 20-minute session and they've agreed, 5 minutes before, say, look, I want to be considerate of the time that we've agreed to. And then do what I'd love to see more people do. Summarize what's been discussed and what you have agreed to do as follow-up, and or what they've agreed to do. And then when you have a minute or two, say to them, is there anything we haven't covered that's important to you or that you would like to add? And if not, you finished a minute to 2 minutes early and everybody's happy. And then you have one more thing to do. You're going to follow up with a text or an email detailing again what you've agreed to do and or what they've agreed to do. In many industries, this is essential. Insurance, if your premium is coming up or renewal is coming up and the premiums may increase, you want to document what you said in the call so you have it in writing. All right.
So speaking of which, we do have 9 minutes left. So speaking of time, so I just wanted to note that so people are, if you have questions, get them in very soon.
Let's talk about more the communication than the technology, because you've all been using Zoom. But I know that ask the client what they want to use. With Humana, it's important for them to use WebEx because of the increased security. And so I had to learn that system. So it didn't hang me up when we did our pilot program with 10 physicians. If you're going to do a keynote or you're going to do a client group session, if you can keep it to 10, it's more manageable. If not, don't worry about it. That puts you in front of as big a group as possible. But get out there. Talk about what you know that people are hungry for. New regulations, new rules, what's changing in your industry. Okay, what's the biggest mistake I see presenters or doctors make? Snowden, that's a great question. The biggest mistake I see is they want to educate, and so they go too fast, and they throw data at you, which is not what we care about. They also look down at a survey that, this is doctors, that their admins have taken, and they'll say, okay, I see that your alcohol consumption is up to 8 out of 10. Do you want me to turn you over to an Alcoholics Anonymous group? I mean, please. So the idea is to ask the kind of questions, not yes or no questions, that probe. Are you feeling stressed right now? Yeah. Are you feeling stressed right now? Is there something you want to talk to me about? Then the mistake or the issue is when a patient or a client sees you as their trusted advisor, they will ask you about everything. Are you married? I've got a nephew who I'd like to introduce you to if you're a woman. I mean, and so the way to keep your session with a patient to 15 minutes, and this is true with any industry, right before the end, say, Mr. Hernandez, it was great speaking to you. I know you understand that I have a number of other patients lined up, and I want to be as considerate with my time with them as I am with you. But no, Mr. Hernandez, we have a whole team here for you. And anytime you have a question or a comment, I want you to contact us. We will be there for you.
So, there's another question here. Deborah, you mentioned safety net in terms of things you were going to share. Is that the 5-minute wrap-up you already described, or do you mean something else?
There's a lot of safety nets throughout. Having an outline, having no more than 3 important points. We as humans cannot remember more than 3. So if you have a lot of issues to convey, narrow it down to 3. You can remember the 3, and so can your client or your patient. Because if you ask them to remember more, they zone out. So 3 is another safety net. We love safety nets. And here's another one. Right before you speak, if you're anxious, don't go over all your content. Because what will happen is you'll say, darn, I just forgot the third point I wanted to make. And then you'll go into your session anxious. Instead, remind yourself of your intention. And that'll allow you to change direction if you need to. You'll say to yourself, I'm going to persuade them that I'm the go-to person in family law. That reminding yourself of your intention is the biggest safety net that I've ever used. Chris, there was a really good question that came in, but
Yeah.
I only read the first line.
That's okay. Esther asks, she's heard that you need to be more expressive with your voice, your hands, and your body on video than in a in-person meeting. And she wants to, wrong? Okay, well, share your views.
Sorry. The camera is so close. If you're more expressive, it will feel phony or superficial. Be yourself. That's another great way to not get Zoom fatigue. You're in a conversation. You're in a dialogue. I'm usually, you can tell, perky. That's who I am. But I'm not overly so. Only if you're on stage, and Snowden probably understands this as a professional speaker, then you want to extend your gestures because you want to reach people in the back row. But that's not true when the camera's up close. Authenticity is key. I want to be considerate of time. I told Chris that instead of $1,000 for up to an hour, my fee for all of you is $500. If you can put a lot, oh, by the way, Snowden, my other book that has become a business bestseller with McGraw-Hill that I wrote with my partner, David Booth, is called Own the Room. You can get it from us. You can get it on Amazon. And that way, if you're not a woman, you still get the tips and techniques you need, or what? If you have a group of 3 or more, 3 up to 50, but the ideal is 3 to 10, instead of 3 to 5,000, it's $1,500. That includes, you can send me your PowerPoint, you can rehearse an upcoming talk, I will work with you on structure, most importantly on storytelling, and what's your voice? I don't believe anyone should copy anyone else. The idea is to bring out more of who you are. And by the way, when all eyes are on you, that is one of the hardest things to do. So don't stop here. Make your next remote session as compelling as possible. Add yourself. Have a very clear goal in mind, and then look afterwards whether you've achieved it or not. And whether remote sessions are over tomorrow or never, you'll be prepared for this new normal. Thank you very much.
Deborah, fantastic. You ended 2 minutes early, which is really wonderful. Thank you so much. This was really incredibly helpful, especially right now. So I really appreciate your time. Deborah is coming back at 2 p.m. Eastern, which is very generous with your time, Deborah. So I'll see you then, and anyone that wants to join again at that time is welcome to do so. That session will not be recorded. So if you had your video off and you want to come back for that one and turn your video on, it won't be on your permanent record. So thanks again, Deborah.
I do have one last comment.
Yes.
I talked at one point that Eloqui has been sending out a speaker tip, a quote, and a word every Sunday morning for 16 years. If you would like to receive it, it will give you more speaker tips every single week. All I need is your email, and if at some point you want to unsubscribe, that's fine, but we'd love to include you in this tip of the week. Thank you.
Great. And anyone that's having trouble, we're going to send out a follow-up email, which will tell you how to get in touch with Deborah. But anyone who doesn't get that or wants to reach out to me, you can always find me at chris@inthehouse.org, chris@inthehouse.org. So feel free to reach out to me if you want to connect with Deborah. Thank you again, Deborah. Really wonderful presentation. Very, very helpful.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Now I got to go eat my grapes.
Yes, enjoy. Okay, bye.
Bye-bye.